a video on marinating lamb in yogurt whey. So I've done this before, but I marinated the lamb in the leftover whey from making some yogurt, and the problem was I didn't have a piece of lamb to compare it to. So it looked like it started to break it down like a yogurt or a buttermilk does. But I didn't have anything to kind of compare it to. So I thought we'll do the experiment again, and also then we'll actually cook it in the whey as well, just out of interest. Just out of interest. So I've got this boneless lamb breast joint, which is what I wanted to use before, but they didn't have any. So this is £6 44, £7 a kilo, and it weighs 920 grams. It's a slow roasting joint. Is lamb shoulder. So what I thought I'd do is we'll whip it in half and unroll it so the whey, nice sharp knife as you can see, so the whey has a chance to get all the way into the lamb. Oh no, it's elastic, so it'll just ping off. So you unroll it like that, because if we were to leave it rolled up, and there's two bits. Because if we leave it to roll up, the whey wouldn't get into the centre of that. So if we unroll it, and then we'll roll it back up when we cook it. So whey into the into the lamb into the whey, and then we'll save that bit to do a comparison. So when we look at that 24 hours later, I can't get in the bin because I've got something on top of the bin. So we'll leave that for 24 hours, something like that, and then we'll have a look at, see if that has started to break down, tenderize, and we'll be able to compare it to this bit that we're not going to. But I'm going to cook both bits of lamb. I'm going to rewrap that one up, and then I'm actually going to cook the lamb in the whey. So one of the lamb have been marinated in the whey, and the other one won't have been marinated in the whey, and then we'll kind of get like a proper comparison between them both. Purely out of interest for me, I can't imagine that anyone is going to have any whey from yogurt to be able to do this experiment. But for my own interest, I think it's generally a waste product that I throw away. I can turn it into alcohol and like a whey mead, which is very nice, and sparkling whey mead is lovely. But otherwise, I throw it away because it's got no use. So keep a little bit back and use it for my next batch of yogurt. But otherwise, it's a waste of product. So we'll see if it tenderizes it, and we'll see how it tastes when we've cooked lamb in it as well. Right, let's have a look at this lamb. I'm going to do it that way. Certainly marinated it. And if that's just falling apart, let's just unwrap that one. We can tie them back up before we cook them. Prepared as always, eh? No, I don't think. Maybe a little bit. Maybe a little bit. No, it doesn't look like it's like compared to each other. It doesn't look like that. Oh, maybe it is. That's roughly the same bit, isn't it? Yeah, I suppose it has. Yeah, it feels. That's roughly the same part. Yeah, it feels. Yeah, it feels tender. It feels tender. So we'll wrap it back up, and then we're going to cook it. We're going to cook both bits in the whey. Probably need a bit of stock as well. I'll do that off camera. We'll wrap it back up because I'll probably make a bit of a mess of it when I'm doing it. Which way? So it's kind of like that, wasn't it? Well, it looks like it's plumped up, doesn't it? So it's probably taken on some of the whey. That absorbed it. So if those don't fit around there, we'll know that it's grown. But I've got some more of these bands. Yeah, that's fine. Right, so I'll wrap it up. I've got some more of those bands, I'm sure. Let's have a look in the cupboard. Yeah, let's have a look at those. So, I saved these from the, when you buy whole chickens. So, they're useful just to have around, so we can just type up with that. And then I'm going to slowly poach it in the whey. I'm not going to fry it, I can't be bothered. I'm more interested in if it's tender. So there we go. We'll wrap those up and then we'll poach it in the whey. We'll just bring it up to, I probably need a bit of stock in there as well, just to cover it, which I've got some. So that in there, that in there, up to the boil, and then the slow simmer for about 2.5 to 3 hours, something like that. Right, let's have a look. I think I can remember which one's which. I need a fork. No, so that one's neater. I think that's the one that I didn't unwrap fully, and I think this is the one that I unwrapped and then wrapped up. I think. So skewer. So we can see that's going nice and easy. Both of them. So that was the one that was marinated. That was the one that wasn't. So they're both about as tender as each other. So I don't really know. And I've only really tested them about half an hour ago. So they were both tender. Then they've been in for about 2.5 hours, something like that. So. Oh, it's lovely and tender. That's lovely and tender as well. I don't think. I don't. Do you know? What do I think? I don't know. I don't know. Is it worth doing? Got some flavour in though, but you'll probably get that flavour in there through just cooking it in the whey. So, I don't know if the whey tenderised it. If you're going to be slow cooking something anyway, you're cooking it until it's falling to bits. So. It's delicious, but I don't think it needed to be marinated in the whey to tenderise it. You know, yeah, I don't know. It's interesting, but I don't think it necessarily makes a difference. It vastly improves it. I think you could marinate it in the, I don't think it tenderises it. I think it puts flavour in there. It makes it tasting interesting. But yeah, it's delicious. But I don't think you really need to do it. It's a way of using up some whey. I think it's slightly a little bit tenderer. Slight little bit. Not much. A little bit. But if you're going to be cooking for something if you're going to be cooking something for 3 hours, anyway, it's going to come out tender. So I don't think. I can count. Maybe it needs to be in for longer. Maybe it needs to be in for longer. Maybe. But it's interesting. We've got an answer. I don't think it's worth. think it's worth doing. I think it's slightly tender, but you'd have to. I think you'd have to use a really tough bit of meat that no amount of cooking would actually ever tenderize. You know, like I think you'd have to. So chickens are tender meat because they're not very old when they're killed. But if you were to get like a really old chicken, they're really tough, you know, and they need cooking for a long time. And I think potentially marinating it in yogurt or whey or buttermilk would tenderize it, you know, that you would be a noticeable difference. But something that's not that tough to start off with, probably more you're doing it for the flavour rather than actually tenderising. So I wouldn't know where to get it. Like if you had something like really old, like an old sheep or an old goat or an old chicken, you know, it might be worth doing it. But most of the meat you buy, even if it's like a slow cooked joint, it's not going to be hugely tough. You know, if it gets cooked for 3 hours, you know, like the quality of meat's pretty good. So yeah, do it for flavour. I don't think you're going to be doing it to what we call it, to tenderise it. In all honesty, just my humble opinion though. But there we go. So it works. I'm going to have it later on. What am I going to do with it? I think I'll serve it with some polenta. I think that'll be nice when I come home from swimming later on tonight. But it's all right. You know, interesting experiment all the same. So success. Actually, we should taste this, shouldn't we? So this was the whey. There's quite a lot of fat on the top of there. This was the whey, and I had some stock left over from something else. So it was stock and wine, which I'd cooked some chicken breasts in. It's been knocking around for a while. That's delicious. That's delicious. So, yeah, maybe, yeah. That'll be, but it was fresh chicken stock, well, chicken cooking juices and wine, and then the whey. But that's delicious. So that's taken on the flavour of the lamb. So potentially cooking it in the whey is worth doing. Yeah, cooking it in the whey, it's worth doing because it adds, you get that lovely, delicious, clean tasting stock. So rather than just adding water, you're actually using a taste of something before you start off with, which is worthwhile. That's lovely. That's lovely. So, yeah. So summing up, from tenderising the meat point of view, a little bit pointless because you're not going to get really bad quality meat. You will in some places, but you know, to kind of, you'd have to go out of your way in the UK to find some really poor quality meat. But so from that point of view, not really not going to make much difference tenderising it, but an interesting, imparts a good flavour and makes an interesting cooking liquid without the use of having to make like a stock or something like that. So yeah, worth it from that point of view. I don't know if I'll be able to incorporate it in anything that I do. I think it would be so I sometimes think with restaurants and recipes that they do things, some of the things like they talk about on a menu, it seems a little bit pointless, but they're doing something to add interest to a dish, like a selling point, you know, like all our produce comes from 5 miles, a 5-mile radius of the restaurant. You know, it's a bit of a gimmick, and I think cooking something in Whey is a bit of a gimmick. Yeah, I think that's, and I think a lot of restaurants do that. They use things as a bit of a gimmick, as a selling technique, where it doesn't make that much difference, but it's worth them doing it because they can add another couple of quid on the price of the meal. So yeah, so I remember a friend working in a restaurant where they served steaks on sizzling platters, so like a cast iron platter. And when it came to the table, it was sizzling, and people kind of loved it, like the sizzling beef that you get in a Chinese, like an authentic Chinese restaurant. Well, probably not authentic. It's probably not very Chinese at all. Like a sizzling platter, but it comes in it's bubbling and frying and spitting, and my friend said it was exactly the same steak that they served. That was served on the platter as it was that you could just get a steak and chips. It was exactly the same steak. But because it came on a platter, they got to charge like £2 or £3 more for the steak, because people liked the idea of it arriving on this sizzling platter, and they were prepared to pay more, even though the steak was exactly the same. You could have the same steak, but just that didn't arrive on the platter for £3 less. But people always went for this sizzling platter because it was a bit of a gimmick and it worked. And I think the same with a lot of things in restaurants. That some of it's just a gimmick, just to get you to pay a little bit more, and that's probably like cooking something in Whey. Probably you could frame it so you could charge a little bit more. But anyway, so probably worth it if you've got a really tough bit of meat, a really tough bit of meat, but otherwise just a bit of fun. So I might as well film what I'm going to do with this. So I've got some of the stock in the back. I'm going to turn it into a sauce. But I'm just going to have a play around. So it's just the stock, the cooking liquor, and I'm just going to thicken it up with some Marinated, which is a mixture of flour and fat. I couldn't tell you what fat it is. No, it's lard. It's lard, but I would have, ideally, you'd use some of the fat from the top of the cooking liquor to mix some of that with flour to thicken the sauce. And I'm not going to put any cream in it or anything like that. I'm just going to thicken it up, and I'm going to put some capers in, because I think the lamb's kind of quite fatty and the polenta is going to be kind of quite rich. And we'll see if this actually works, this sauce. So I think some capers in it would be nice. I don't want a creamy sauce. I'm not going to put any milk or cream in it. And then we're going to cook the polenta in stock. So we're going to have all that really nice flavour of the stock into the polenta. And I've got some grated hard cheese as well, which we're going to put into the polenta. So that should just boil and thicken up. You might have to put a blender in it. If it gets a bit too thick, we can always add a little bit more stock later on. So then stock at the front, and turn that up. So we're going to go for 2 parts stock to 1 part polenta. Is it polenta? Well, it's cornmeal, but potato and all that. And then I need that whisk. I need some more thickening in it. I'm sure this will be of no interest whatsoever for people. Oh yeah, and then I'm gonna add some cheese to the polenta, and then I'm gonna add some of the fat from the top of the lamb as well. And then that'll, because normally in things like polenta you put sauce, it's going to be fine. Normally in polenta you put butter and a bit of cheese, but I was thinking, well, we might as well just use some of the fat from the lamb. That'd be nice. So we'll see. Hopefully this won't go. That's okay. That's all right. Got the nice bits of juice in there, bits of meat in there as well. Why am I not making any sense? So we can turn that heat off. Now we can put the cheese in. That's quite a lot. No, it's quite a lot of cheese, but not to worry. Probably better off with a spoon. its diff. So then we want some of this fat, just to enrich it. So instead of butter's a fat, lamb fat's a fat. So that can go in. We'll put a couple of tablespoons in. There's loads more flavour in that than there is in any butter. So that would be nice. I don't think it will need any seasoning in it. Need some more stock though. I'll turn that sauce off. About that much extra. And then carefully, so it doesn't splash everywhere. I'll put some pepper in now. Well, it's not really particularly very vibrant colour tea, but it will be nice all the same. A little bit more stock. Yeah, we're probably done a 3 to 1, but not to worry. How does it taste? Lovely. That's really nice. Right, so we'll get the sauce up. I can move to the back for a minute. In the whisk. That wants to be thicker. It's a bit opaque. To be honest, it's a bit opaque. It'll taste nice, but it doesn't look particularly wonderful. It just needs a bit more thickening in that. I realise it's a non-stick pan. That'll be fine. Turn that off. Then capers. Must have been watching something yesterday when they made a caper sauce. These are really old capers as well. What's more than that? I shouldn't have used my spoon. This is why I create so much washing up. That'll be fine. And that. Taste the sauce. That's lovely as well. So, to save on washing up, we're going to use that plate or we're going to use that bowl. Now we'll use a bowl. Got it out already. So, we'll enter. Should have a knife somewhere as well. Forgot. What do I? Nope. Can't find a knife. Use this. And then on there. Yeah, so it's a bit beige, but it's fine because it's only for me. Unless someone calls round and sees me in the next 5 minutes, then I'll have to give them something to eat. Yeah, it's a bit beige, isn't it? But it'll be absolutely delicious. There we go. What I did with the lamb afterwards.